Hey, welcome. So today, we're going to dive into a therapeutic approach that goes way beyond just talking about your past. It's a method designed for some really profound spiritual and emotional healing, one that aims to actually transform our deepest wounds, not just paper over them. Let's get into it.
You ever have that feeling like you're just stuck in a loop? That same emotional reaction pops up, or you find yourself in the same kind of relationship again, or there's this limiting belief you just can't shake. It's so frustrating, right? Well, that's exactly the kind of deep-rooted problem this healing method is designed to get at.
So how's it different? Well, a lot of traditional therapy is about reframing, consciously changing the way you think about something that happened. This new approach, it's about recontextualizing. That means you actually invite a higher divine presence right into the memory itself. The whole point isn't to change the story, but to change the energy of the story. It's a shift from a mental exercise to a deeply spiritual one.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll see how this builds on older methods. Then we'll get into the real engine room, the 4 keys to transformation. After that, we'll explore this powerful idea of replacing mental scripts with spiritual presence, look at the unique tools a therapist uses, and finally, check out the incredible results people can get.
All right, first up, beyond traditional regression. See, this isn't just throwing out the old playbook. It's about seeing it as an evolution. Let's break down the powerful new layers it adds to the healing process.
So this is where it really starts to get unique. Instead of just that mental re-scripting, it uses Gestalt therapy ideas to help you really feel and let go of old emotions. Forgiveness gets a major boost with a technique called inner plane communication. And at its heart is spiritual alignment. That's the recontextualization part, which is always tailored to your personal spiritual beliefs. And last but not least, it includes a really important tool called spirit releasement, just to make sure we're actually working on the client's own issues.
Okay, now we're getting to the absolute heart of this whole process, the 4 keys to transformation. And this isn't some vague, floaty journey. It's a really clear 4-step framework that's meant to be the engine of real, lasting change. So the healing journey breaks down into these 4 steps. First, you identify the core issue and you trace it all the way back to where it started. Second, you release all that trapped emotional energy, and not by talking about it, but by actually feeling it in a safe, guided way. Third, and honestly this is the game changer, you align that memory with a divine resource, which shifts the whole thing from a place of fear to a place of truth. And the final step, the outcome. A massive energetic shift where the old sticky pattern just dissolves. Let's really zoom in on that 3rd key, because this is where this approach takes a hard turn from the old way of doing things. It's all about swapping out mental effort for something way more powerful.
So why not just re-script the past? Well, the argument here is that when we try to consciously rewrite a memory, it's usually just our ego, our logical, often defensive mind, trying to force a story of how things should have been. It's like trying to use your intellect to fix a wound in your soul, and that's why it often just doesn't stick.
So if not our ego, then what? Well, that's where the idea of a higher resource comes in. This is basically any being or energy that's in harmony with your true self, with what you might call divine light, and it's invited into the memory after all that heavy emotion has been released. The key difference here is that you're not imagining a different past. You're illuminating the real past with a higher perspective. And this isn't some vague, one-size-fits-all concept. A higher resource can be a lot of different things, and it's totally customized to the person's own spiritual beliefs. It could be the pure white light, maybe an angel, a spiritual figure like Jesus or Buddha. It could even be the client's own higher self. The common thread is that it's an energy of pure love and truth.
And this quote just nails it. Those old, fear-based ideas we formed during a trauma, things like I'm not safe or I'm unlovable, those are what the source calls egoic misperceptions. And when that light of the self comes in, you don't argue with those misperceptions. They are just replaced by a deeper truth, like I am always safe and loved.
Okay, so to do this kind of deep, profound work, therapists have a few specialized tools in their toolkit that you probably won't find in standard talk therapy. Let's take a look at what they are.
First, there's something called inner plane communication, or IPC. It's pretty wild. While in a trance state, the client has a dialogue, but not just with their memory, but with the higher self of the other person involved in whatever happened. The idea is that by helping to heal the other person's soul in this space, the client gets a brand new perspective,
And that can open the door to a kind of deep, genuine forgiveness that just wasn't possible before.
Next up is remote work. And yeah, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. The healing is done through a surrogate when the actual client can't be there. This is seen as being especially powerful for helping kids with past life issues or for untangling complicated family energies when you can't get everyone in the same room.
And finally, there's spirit releasement. Now, this is presented as a supercritical diagnostic tool. The premise is that sometimes the problems a client is dealing with, say a sudden anxiety or an addiction, might not actually be theirs. They could be influenced by what's described as an attached entity. The therapy holds that without checking for this and clearing it first, you might end up treating the wrong problem entirely.
So, we've gone through the theory, the process, and the tools. But what's the bottom line? What does all this actually feel like for someone who goes through it? Well, let's talk about the result, a whole new reality.
You know, one of the most common things people say right after a session is incredibly simple. It's just, I feel lighter. And this isn't supposed to be a metaphor. According to the source material, it's a literal description of what happens when all that dense, heavy energy from past traumas is finally released from your system.
But what's really incredible about the outcome is that the change is described as totally effortless and permanent. This isn't about learning to manage your triggers or chanting affirmations every day. It's that the old reactive patterns, they're just gone. They've been transcended. The healing is considered so deep that you don't need to keep working on it.
And this example makes it so clear. So a client comes in and their whole life has been a pattern of feeling rejected in relationships. That's the old theme. After the work is done, that fear of rejection has vanished. It's been replaced by a heart that is just naturally buoyant, loving, and open. It's not something they have to try to be. It's just who they are now.
This quote, wow, it really captures just how big this shift is. It's not just that a problem got solved, it's that the entire universe that was built around that problem has literally disappeared. That old world, with all its familiar fears and limits, it's just not there anymore.
And that really brings us to the final powerful question at the heart of all this. What if real healing isn't about trying to erase the past? What if it's about illuminating it, inviting a profound, loving presence into those dark places and letting them be totally transformed by a higher truth? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me today.